saying, what's the use? There's no place in the world for my brains, my talent, so I just as well drink myself to death. Now this is a very bad message from society to him, from his parents, from the society that he grew up in. They didn't take him, they didn't say, you're way too smart for that. This guy is never gonna drink. Well, he's way too smart to drink. Who in the world turns into an alcoholic that's got genius IQ, talent to burn, and looks? And he becomes a hopeless alcoholic? Does that not compute? No, I'm saying this. This guy was suppressed, held down, sent in the wrong direction.
I'm going to charge you for breaking.
I'll tell you, he was sent in the wrong direction, encouraged to what? Take a degree out in business, which he hated. When he had all of this talent. Yeah, but you had the talent to be so much.
What?
An actor, a writer,
holy crap. You've seen actors
an artist. He had the talent.
You've seen this crap that's hanging on these walls up there?
Yes, but he had the talent to be a genius. A genius. And nobody recognized it. Nobody actually recognized that this kid
well, that's right. They
had a very unusual brain. I know it. I know he has. But what?
Listen,
I'm going to
let you do the
extremely
dishes, okay?
unusual brain.
I will let you do the dishes
and waste yourself.
I will let you waste yourself on the dishes. All right?
The reason why he drinks is because he never was valued. He was never valued by his people who didn't know how to value him. They were, they were not people who knew how to value a brain like his. They didn't know what to do with him. They didn't know how to advise him. They didn't know how to keep him from falling into despair. He's a man in despair. You hear him talk. What's the use?
Despair of what?
I'm 73 years old. My life is over.
Glad I got back from 74 back to 73.
I'm trying to kill. This guy was 10 years on the street.
I wasn't 10 years on the street.
Oh, how many? How many? Oh, where were you the rest of the time?
I was writing a book, okay? It's all
and what
there.
happened to that book? The Odyssey of the Homeless. What happened to that book? It didn't get worked on. It didn't get completed. It didn't get sent off. None of it did. Instead, you took up alcohol, which you had been fooling around
about
with.
50 years ago.
50 years ago. A guy like him that takes up alcohol, this says something about the society around him. The people who are supposed to be encouraging this guy, recognizing what he's got, and keeping him occupied and interested in the world so he doesn't take up alcoholism. Alcoholism is the most useless preoccupation for a guy with his kind of brain that I can possibly think of. Alcoholism is not, and I came along and I said, what in the name of God is a guy as smart as he is, as talented, what's he doing drinking?
I want to get out and walk across a swimming pool.
I knew that he had been...
I think I can walk on water now.
I knew that he had been neglected.
Open the gates, this is a pool,
this
kid, walk on water.
And a kid like him comes along, unusual. This kid was not valued at all.
Of course I was valued.
Oh, the hell you weren't. The only people that valued him maybe was a wife that wanted him to bring home plenty of money. She didn't even have sense enough to value your brains. You've never had a wife that valued your brains. Never.
I don't care about my brains.
And that was the only woman around. That was the only woman around the only person around to value him in a lot of those years. He was out helping them. He was helping them raise their kids. He was rescuing them as such as he could. And who was rescuing him? Who was keeping him from falling into complete alcoholism? Now, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people in this life that the reason why they fall into drug addiction, alcoholism, they're not valued. What they are basically is of no value to society. If they're smart, their brains aren't valued, they're not encouraged. We don't value what our people, our kids, are capable of doing. We don't value that. And this is what caused them to get all discouraged, take up drinking, drinking to the point, when I met him, I didn't think he'd last 6 months. He was drinking that bad. His face was beet red.
Yes, I know. We've heard this story over and over.
And, you know, and he had the worst, awfulest case of alcoholism. I mean, 5 years later, he's still alive, but he's still drinking heavily. I mean, he still fixes him a drink first thing in the morning. He hasn't made any moves at all to quit. He's still a hardcore alcoholic. But I looked at him and I said, I have never met a guy as talented, as brainy, and I said, what in the world does he do? What kind of society is this in America who
how come I can't
produces
walk
a kid,
I just
a
want to
guy,
walk in the water once.
an older guy that's smart, and can't think of anything better to do with him than watch him fall into acute alcoholism. Nobody ever paid any attention to this guy. They didn't pay attention to the fact. They didn't value him. He's just born, he's just another one. Same with me. I'm a case of gross neglect by my society that did not value
I think you're actually
kids.
right.
Gross neglect
Because
by my
you
society.
deserved every... See, you worked for yours. Mine just came on me by my mistake. You worked for neglect, okay? You're the only one I've ever known who will not take yes for an answer.
People who achieve
if
greatly
somebody doesn't negate
in
you,
this
you're not
society,
excited about it.
You go back into their history and you find out there's a whole lot of nurtures around them. They got parents that recognize they're very smart. They send them to schools, and they got all kinds of people recognizing him. Well, here I was born to a guy out in the country.
I told you.
Who did not, wasn't recognizing
I told you,
himself.
when you're on a horse in the saddle, your dad does not want to be seen, does not want to see you with a book in your hand. You know, you're supposed to be out looking for that damn cattle out there.
Well, I was born into a country.
Just because
my dad was a cowboy.
Female doesn't make any difference.
They were ranchers. They had enough money to send me to college, but I was living in Utah, and my people, they objected to a lot of the Mormon doctrine. They couldn't go along with it. So, in Utah, they were like ostracized because Utah was all Mormon. It was predominantly Mormon. So if you go around objecting to the doctrine, and you're right there in Utah and you're born there, things are going to be very difficult for you because you don't conform. There's the worst thing in the world to be born into a society that's extremely religious is to have a child questioning this doctrine, saying, I think that guy was crazy. I don't believe this Joseph Smith. I don't think. And look, you start polygamy, for heaven's sake. Who starts polygamy but a crazy man, you know? So
Works for
I was a critic.
I mean, I've been married to 4 women, but just not at the same time.
And that kind of child is not welcome. So I looked
Plus
on
all
it.
the girlfriends in between? Holy crap.
So right then and there, I was not going to be a world famous writer. I was going to have a great big job, even as a child, of surviving in that kind of society. A suppressed society right here in America, a great big state of Utah. I would be a very suppressed child because that religion had such a grip on Utah. And you know, they came out west, they wanted to do this. And so I was one of these children that was born into this and objected to it. So I was naturally going to be regarded as the enemy. Even as a little kid, I was regarded as the enemy.
I
lost my job as school teacher because I was
You never were a school teacher. I'll tell you something else.
No, as a Sunday school teacher.
You have succeeded. Don't even start me on Sundays. You are still considered by some as an enemy. And folks, I guarantee you one thing right now. If this goes on for another 3 hours, there might be an enemy here. You know, if this battery dies,
Well, look at
this
him.
battery cost
He
me
had a
$80.
He was raised in a very a similarly suppressive society, Lutheran society, German Lutheran society.
We was not Nazis. We was not Nazis. We got Cub Scouts. We got Boy Scouts. We got Explorer Scouts. We got brownies for the girls. Girl Scouts for the girls. But it was not Nazis. I don't care what you say. We don't like kikes, Jews, Dagos, or any of those people. And I hate those people. We're not Nazis.
You can hear
me.
him singing.
Holy crap. Wait. There's easy going people, you know. And, don't get me started on the blacks. Oh, boy, that was a whole different ballgame there. There was a black came to the Lutheran church the other day. Oh, my God, you're in serious trouble. A black person in the Lutheran church, yeah. Guess where that church is now today, folks? Completely black. All the whites went out in the boondocks.
So you can see for yourself. He was born in the suppressive society, Lutheran.
I don't got no problem
Anytime
with
a child, you didn't have any problem. He rebelled against
that.
it.
I married a Lutheran.
He rebelled against it.
Boy, what a dummy that
his
was.
His marriage broke up within a very short time. Married to a Lutheran daughter,
the first
a
night I got
minister's
married.
daughter.
Not tonight, honey. I haven't.
And this started him on his career of alcoholism. Because what? He was doing similar to me. He was fighting. He was born into a suppressive society, a church society that was very tightly knit. His parents wouldn't even let him go to public school at all because they feared the influence.
Wait a minute. I went to kindergarten at public school.
Oh, public. And from then on, the Lutherans had you, right? Until you got out of by the throat. And he went to church all the time and he heard all that.
I didn't get any choice.
He had a similar problem as I did in not being able to accept the doctrine. You couldn't accept the doctrine. You were not sold on it. You were resisting it. And so there was a battle between him and he's actually been fighting that battle his whole life. Because that was the kind of people that did not nurture his brain. They saw him as the enemy when he criticized, when he did not go along with the church.
I never criticized him.
Oh, yes, you did. In every way that you live, you criticize. And should criticize.
How can you criticize your parents when your younger brother's dying of leukemia and you see blood all over the place? You can't criticize.
Well, of course you're not going to criticize them when they're going through that. But it was just like my dad. My dad was a rebel. He resisted the doctrine, and he became an alcoholic right along with it.
We talked about this before.
Rebellion.
My dad didn't drink.
And he didn't rebel either. He went to church. He accepted the doctrine. You were the one that rebelled.
But your dad died leaving $1 million.
When did you quit? When did you quit?
My dad probably.
When did you quit?
What?
Going to church.
After my first marriage.
Right. He never went to church again.
Well, I did, but I tried it, but it didn't work.
Yeah, but it didn't work. It didn't work.
Well, I tried it with the last movie.
Actually, the people that
I felt like a hypocrite.
The Germans, people that were should have been nurturing him and helping him develop, were all caught up in this religion, so they weren't able to value his judgment and value his judgment that this was too much. I mean, he was a reformer. He was going to reform the reformers. The Lutherans used to say, this is too much. Putting a child through this where they can't hear anything or think anything except Lutheran doctrine, can't go to public school, they have to go to Lutheran schools, they have to go to church all the time. He's a product of that. And he became an alcoholic.
I'm gonna something right now.
Just like my dad did.
I used to be able to play the piano with these hands.
Yeah.
Now I can't even grab into my crotch anymore because the fingers won't even go together. And this woman won't help me either. So.
Oh yeah. Well, he's got some magnificent talent coming down through his German, maybe he's German ancestry. I don't know.
What
He's
the hell
got
do you
some
know
great
about
qualities, but
What, because I can sing and play the piano?
play the piano.
Tap dance,
I
dance.
cannot do anything.
When I was young,
And this-
I used to make women's hair stand on end just by taking them to bed.
And this.
That's a long
this
time
one-
ago, folks. Long time ago.
Yeah, so he had all this talent, but he ended up locked into this very religious society
Well,
where
I'll
they
tell
were
you
able
what,
to hold on
when-
to him.
When your wife's mother says, "My God, Nancy, he's built like a Greek god." So I was naked coming out of the shower. I didn't know she was standing there. Okay.
Okay. So I think that's one reason we can sympathize with one another, because we were both raised in some very suppressive church societies, and we were regarded as the enemy if we rebelled against it. Because they were very, very, in Utah, since they were all Mormons, they could really, really make people conform and punish people who didn't conform. That's always, if you've got a closed society. And he was in a German community where they could really squeeze the kids and get them to conform, which is bad. In this case, it was bad. In my case, it was bad. It was bad that Mormonism dominated Utah because they didn't, there was no leeway. There still isn't. I mean, that's one of the problems of growing up in Utah, is you get that conformity that's expected of kids.
Yes, and guess where we live now, folks?
Phoenix, Arizona,
And guess what's the third?
in the land of the alcoholics.
Oh, no, sorry about that. Guess which the biggest city, third biggest city in Arizona? Mesa.
Yeah,
Loaded
right.
with.
Loaded with Mormon. Well, I avoid
Scottsdale. It
all the
doesn't
Mormon
even-
communities.
Scottsdale's
I
got
know
money. Scottsdale's
they
got
are.
Jews and money. Glendale's got Jews and money.
So-
What does Mesa have? Mormons.
So he and I end up being two people that had to rebel against a suppressive church society. Even like people were rebelling back in the past to break out of a very suppressive church society where doctrine that was obviously a little demented was imposed. And so when you rebelled against it,
Doctrine demented?
yeah,
Whatever happened to Dr. Demento? I used to listen to him all the time.
Utah was peopled by
Dr.
polygamists, if you
Demento.
can imagine. If the government hadn't forced him to give up polygamy, it'd be a nightmare in Utah. We would have so many polygamists up there that.
Well,
I
what's
can't
if
even
they want to do
believe
it,
it.
let them do it.
Polygamy is not advancement. It's a step back in the dark ages, as far as I'm. Imagine 7 wives to a husband. That's polygamy.
Well, you missed my point earlier.
7
I've been
wives.
married 4 times, so but not at the same time, okay? Not at the same time. I could have probably been married 8, 9 times, but not at the same time. So there's
So
a
really,
difference.
I had a very big role to play that certainly didn't bring me fame and fortune or recognition. It was criticizing the society that I grew up in.
One of the problems is you have is you criticize me all the time. And the
Because
problem is I don't give a shit.
well,
I
it's
don't.
because a lot of the Mormon rebels
Dave
drink.
Brubeck and
They
Jimmy
become
Ruffin,
alcoholic.
Blues in the dark.
The men especially, they become alcoholic. And to me, this is a stupid way to rebel. Rebellion just goes asunder. You don't rebel effectively anymore when you become an alcoholic. You just
Asunder?
become an alcoholic.
Asunder? What the hell does that mean?
Then you're dealing with just what alcohol does to you. You're not rebelling. You're not really doing anything. Your rebellion is very weak. It's not focused. It's not thinking.
Well,
It's just the act of drinking in the middle of a church
I'm going
society.
to tell you something right now.
And that's what I objected to my dad's rebellion.
I'm going to tell you something.
It was
right now.
alcoholic.
If you don't cut this within the next 15 minutes, I'm going to get up and leave my apartment.
Well, this is thinking,
I'm going to get up and
folks.
leave my
This is
apartment,
thinking.
and I'm going to take
He
all
and
my
I-
clothes with me and move into your apartment. What do you think about that?
I had to do some very hard thinking to survive in Utah. As I got incarcerated,
Holy
things
crap,
happened
you
to
gotta do
me.
hard thinking just to survive
I had
on
a
me.
terrible hard time
seriously.
getting out of the
Think
nut
about
house.
this. Don't make me bring up the turnip lady thing again. There's 40 minutes, folks. You're gonna love it. Send in $20 and I'll send you back 40 minutes of stuff that you will
Yes.
not believe. I even had a mustache then, and a beard, and I was
So
playing
this is
Santa
your
Claus.
morning's thinking for the new year, coming from people who had to think to survive.
That's right.
I mean, I had to think to get out of the mental hospital without being electric shocked right out of my mind or killed.
Yeah, well, that felt good. If I can just.
I didn't get shocked, and it was all due to I had to do my thinking in order
I
to
don't have,
keep
I
them
don't
from
need a- I
shocking
don't
me.
need electric shock. I don't need a frontal lobotomy. I have heard it prove to me that I am probably one of the biggest a-holes you've ever seen.
How many people have been locked up for their thinking?
I have. I'm locked up right now.
Threatened with electric shock, and I said, "Hey, this is what can happen to you. If the people that lock you up don't understand where you're coming from, and they think of you as the enemy, as something that is foreign to them, that is criticizing their way of life, So, I mean, we may not be world famous, but we had to come up against some really big odds that a lot of people don't have to. We had to overcome, and he's fallen into alcoholism. Well, that's just a sign of how
What's this
hard
we
of
stuff?
battle.
When
that he
did
had
we
to
get we
fight.
there?
Well, I didn't fall into alcoholism, but I understand why he fell into it, because I was surrounded by rebels who fell into alcoholism. Alcoholism was one of the commonest ways to rebel, and it's also one of the worst. It's the weakest.
Okay,
because
you like
there's
outlaws,
just
right?
nothing
You like
about
outlaws.
it that says very much.
You like outlaws.
No, I like rebels. I like people who rebel against the thinking.
See, folks,
But
if you didn't see this
alcohol-
early one where she's calling you
I tried to
bad,
tell
bad,
him. I
bad.
tried to tell him you can rebel without being an alcoholic. That's why I tried to convince my dad. I tried to convince any alcoholic I ran into. You're rebelling, but the alcohol has got you by the throat. I mean, alcohol is a weak form of rebellion because it gets you. It destroys you, destroys your brain, keeps you incapacitated. So I've always thought about my cousins, my male cousins. Don't drink, buddy, and you'll be a lot stronger rebel. And when they quit drinking, they were much, much stronger. My cousins that quit drinking with a rebellion were a lot stronger in their thinking and their rebelling, why they were doing it. So alcohol is a typical common, I'm gonna rebel, I'm gonna smoke pot, I'm gonna drink, this is real common, but they're destructive, they're self-destructive.
I'm sorry I have to burp. What do you want me to do? Fart on camera?
Rob, would you please turn the camera off?
Oh, are you done?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I think I've made my statement. Bye.
Okay.
I think so. Bye.
I have no idea. Folks, we have unleashed a weapon of mass destruction here. Mass destruction. There's nuclear activity going on here that scares the bejesus out of me, I'll tell you that. Oh,
Okay.
crap.